Welcome to World of Wonders. Today, we're embarking on a journey through the deadliest hurricanes to ever strike North America. From devastating storms that reshaped coastlines to tales of survival and resilience, join us as we explore the forces of nature that left an indelible mark on history. From the infamous Galveston Hurricane to the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Katrina, these storms have shaped our understanding of nature's power and the importance of preparation in the face of disaster. Let's dive into the stories behind these historic hurricanes and the lessons they've taught us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest videos exploring the fascinating stories from the world and beyond. Now, let's get started. Number 15. Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael, a name that will always be remembered in the records of meteorological history. It was the first Category 5 hurricane to make landfall in the contiguous United States since Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Formed on October 7, 2018, Michael rapidly intensified over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Michael's journey began in the southwestern Caribbean Sea, but it wasn't until it moved northward into the Gulf of Mexico that it truly became a monster. By October 10th, it had strengthened to a Category 4 hurricane, packing winds of up to 155 miles per hour as it bore down on the Florida Panhandle. Making landfall near Mexico Beach, Florida, Michael's winds were just shy of Category 5 strength, causing catastrophic damage. Entire neighborhoods were flattened, and the coastal town of Mexico Beach was nearly wiped off the map. In Panama City, buildings crumbled under the sheer force of the wind. First responders and residents described the aftermath as a war zone. Michael's powerful winds and storm surge caused over $25 billion in damages and claimed at least 59 lives across 4 states. The storm surge reached heights of up to 14 feet in some areas, sweeping homes off their foundations and leaving a path of devastation. The aftermath of Hurricane Michael was a testament to the resilience of the affected communities. Recovery efforts began almost immediately, with local, state, and federal agencies working tirelessly to provide relief and rebuild. Despite the extensive damage, the spirit of the people in the Florida Panhandle remained unbroken. One unique fact about Hurricane Michael is its rapid intensification. Within a 24-hour period, Michael's winds increased by 45 miles per hour, a phenomenon that highlights the unpredictability and power of hurricanes. Additionally, it was the third most intense hurricane to make landfall in the United States in terms of pressure, with a minimum central pressure of 919 millibars. Hurricane Michael serves as a stark reminder of nature's fury and the importance of preparedness. While the scars of Michael are still visible, the stories of heroism and community strength continue to inspire. Number 14. Hurricane Andrew. Hurricane Andrew, a name synonymous with destruction, was one of the most powerful hurricanes to ever strike the United States. Formed on August 16, 1992, Andrew rapidly gained strength in the Atlantic, becoming a major hurricane in just a few days. Andrew's path of destruction began in the Bahamas, but it wasn't until it approached the southeastern coast of Florida that it reached its peak intensity. On August 24th, Andrew made landfall near Homestead, Florida, as a Category 5 hurricane with sustained winds of 165 miles per hour. Homestead, Florida, bore the brunt of Andrew's fury. Entire neighborhoods were obliterated, with homes reduced to splinters and trees stripped bare. Andrew was blamed for 61 deaths in Florida and the Caribbean. The damage was so extensive that it left more than 250,000 people homeless and caused an estimated $27 billion in damages, making it the costliest hurricane in U.S. history at that time. Survivors and first responders recounted the storm's terrifying impact. One resident described the sound of the wind as akin to a freight train roaring through their home. The scale of the devastation was immense, with Andrew's powerful winds and storm surge wreaking havoc across southern Florida. In the aftermath, the affected communities faced a long road to recovery. Federal and state agencies, along with countless volunteers, mobilized to provide aid and rebuild. The storm's impact also led to significant changes in building codes and emergency preparedness protocols to better withstand future hurricanes. Hurricane Andrew's intensity was extraordinary. It was one of only 4 hurricanes to make landfall in the United States as a Category 5. Andrew's minimum central pressure at landfall was 922 millibars, making it one of the most intense hurricanes to hit the U.S. Additionally, the storm's rapid intensification and small compact size made it a particularly deadly force. Number 13. Hurricane Dorian. Hurricane Dorian, a name that still sends chills down the spines of many, formed on August 24, 2019. Initially a modest tropical storm, Dorian rapidly intensified as it approached the Caribbean, becoming a major hurricane within days. Dorian's path took it straight towards the Bahamas, where it would leave an indelible mark. On September 1st, Dorian made landfall on Elbow Cay in the Abaco Islands as a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane with sustained winds of 185 miles per hour and gusts over 220 miles per hour. The Bahamas experienced unprecedented devastation. Entire neighborhoods were flattened, and the islands were left in ruins. The storm surge reached heights of up to 23 feet, submerging vast areas and making rescue operations exceedingly difficult. Over 70,000 people were left homeless, and at least 74 lives were lost, with many more still missing. Survivors and first responders described scenes of unimaginable horror. One resident recalled how their home was swept away by the surge, while another spoke of the harrowing days spent trapped without food or water. The scale of human suffering was immense, and the recovery would take years. The international response was swift, with aid pouring in from around the world. Governments, NGOs, and countless volunteers mobilized to provide relief. The rebuilding process, however, was slow and challenging, given the extent of the destruction and the remoteness of the affected areas. Hurricane Dorian's intensity was extraordinary, tying it for the second strongest Atlantic hurricane on record by wind speed. Its minimum central pressure dropped to 910 millibars, marking it as one of the most intense hurricanes to ever hit the Atlantic. Dorian was also notable for its slow movement. It lingered over the Bahamas for over 24 hours, exacerbating the damage with prolonged exposure to its powerful winds and storm surge. Despite the overwhelming destruction, the resilience of the Bahamian people shone through. Stories of heroism, community spirit, and international solidarity emerged from the rubble. Number 12. Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey, a storm that would go down in history, formed on August 17, 2017, in the Atlantic. Initially, it seemed unremarkable, but as it entered the Gulf of Mexico, Harvey rapidly intensified into a Category 4 hurricane, reaching peak winds of 130 miles per hour. Harvey's path led it straight towards the Texas coastline. On August 25th, it made landfall near Rockport, Texas, as a powerful Category 4 hurricane. The immediate impact was devastating, with widespread destruction to homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Rockport and the surrounding communities were hit hard. Buildings were torn apart, power lines were downed, and entire neighborhoods were left in ruins. But this was just the beginning of Harvey's wrath. After making landfall, Harvey stalled over southeastern Texas, unleashing unprecedented rainfall. Over the course of several days, some areas received more than 60 inches of rain, leading to catastrophic flooding. Houston, the fourth largest city in the United States, was particularly hard hit, with vast areas submerged underwater. Residents and first responders recounted harrowing stories of survival. One Houston resident described how they had to escape to their roof as floodwaters engulfed their home. Rescue teams worked tirelessly, saving thousands of people trapped by the rising waters. The sheer scale of the flooding was unlike anything the region had ever seen. In the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, the extent of the damage became clear. Harvey claimed at least 82 lives in Texas, and more than 13,000 people required rescuing throughout Texas, and an overall 30,000 people from that state were displaced by floodwaters. The storm cost an estimated $125 billion in damages, making it one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. The federal, state, and local response was massive, with emergency services, the National Guard, and countless volunteers providing critical aid and support. Hurricane Harvey was remarkable not just for its intensity, but for its unprecedented rainfall. It set the record for the most significant rainfall event in U.S. history, with Cedar Bayou, Texas, recording 51.88 inches of rain. Additionally, Harvey's slow movement and prolonged stalling over Texas magnified its impact, turning it into a devastating flood event. Number 11. Hurricane Hugo. Hurricane Hugo, a storm that left a trail of destruction across the Caribbean and the southeastern United States, formed on September 9, 1989. Hugo rapidly intensified, becoming a major hurricane as it approached the Lesser Antilles. Hugo's path of destruction began in the Caribbean. On September 17th, it made landfall on the island of Guadeloupe as a Category 4 hurricane, then barreled through the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, causing widespread devastation. The storm then continued on a collision course with the southeastern United States. The Caribbean islands faced Hugo's full wrath. In Puerto Rico, Hugo's powerful winds and torrential rains caused catastrophic damage, leaving over 100,000 people homeless and causing billions of dollars in damages. The U.S. Virgin Islands were similarly devastated, with much of the infrastructure destroyed. After wreaking havoc in the Caribbean, Hugo set its sights on the U.S. mainland. On the night of September 21st to 22nd, Hugo made landfall near Charleston, South Carolina, as a Category 4 hurricane, packing winds of 140 miles per hour. Charleston and the surrounding areas were hit hard. The powerful winds uprooted trees, downed power lines, and caused extensive damage to homes and businesses. The storm surge inundated coastal areas, causing further destruction. Hugo became the strongest storm to hit the East Coast since Hurricane Hazel in 1954, causing at least 86 deaths and upward of $10 billion in damages in the United States alone, making it one of the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history at the time. Residents and first responders recounted the storm's terrifying impact. One Charleston resident described the sound of the wind as a deafening roar, like a freight train passing right through their home. First responders worked tirelessly in the storm's aftermath, rescuing trapped residents and beginning the arduous process of recovery. In the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo, communities faced a long road to recovery. Federal, state, and local agencies, along with countless volunteers, mobilized to provide aid and begin rebuilding. The resilience of the affected communities was truly remarkable as they worked together to overcome the disaster. Hurricane Hugo was notable for its rapid intensification and the sheer power of its winds. At its peak, Hugo reached Category 5 status with winds of 160 miles per hour before slightly weakening before landfall. Number 10. Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy, often referred to as Superstorm Sandy, formed on October 22, 2012, in the Caribbean Sea. Initially a tropical storm, Sandy quickly intensified and became a hurricane as it moved northward. Sandy's path took it through the Caribbean, where it first made landfall in Jamaica as a Category 1 hurricane. It then strengthened into a Category 3 hurricane before hitting Cuba. The storm then moved northward, impacting the Bahamas and eventually making its way towards the eastern United States. The Caribbean islands faced significant impacts from Sandy. Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas experienced strong winds, heavy rainfall, and widespread flooding. The storm caused extensive damage to infrastructure and homes, leaving thousands without power and basic necessities. As Sandy moved up the eastern seaboard, it took an unusual and devastating turn. On October 29th, Sandy made landfall near Brigantine, New Jersey, as a post-tropical cyclone with hurricane-force winds. Despite its classification, Sandy's impact was nothing short of catastrophic. New York and New Jersey bore the brunt of Sandy's fury. The storm surge caused unprecedented flooding in lower Manhattan, submerging subway stations, tunnels, and streets. In New Jersey, entire coastal communities were devastated, with homes and businesses swept away by the surge. Residents and first responders described scenes of chaos and destruction. One New York resident recalled the surreal sight of the East River flooding into the streets. Emergency services worked around the clock, rescuing stranded individuals and providing critical assistance in the storm's aftermath. The aftermath of Hurricane Sandy revealed the immense scale of the disaster. Sandy destroyed or damaged about 650,000 homes in the northeast U.S. and killed 117 people in the U.S. alone, as well as 69 others in Canada and the Caribbean. Sandy caused an estimated $70 billion in damages, making it one of the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history. The federal, state, and local response was massive, with numerous agencies and volunteers aiding in the relief and recovery efforts. Hurricane Sandy was unique in several ways. Its enormous size impacted a vast area, with tropical storm-force winds extending up to 1,000 miles from the center. Additionally, the timing of its landfall coincided with a full moon, exacerbating the storm surge and leading to record-breaking flooding in many areas. Number 9. Hurricane Ivan. Hurricane Ivan, a name that would become synonymous with destruction, formed on September 2, 2004, in the tropical Atlantic. Quickly gaining strength, Ivan became a major hurricane within days as it moved towards the Caribbean. Ivan's path of destruction began in the Windward Islands, where it made landfall in Grenada as a Category 3 hurricane on September 7th. From there, it continued to intensify, reaching Category 5 status with winds of up to 165 miles per hour as it approached Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Grenada was hit hard, with 90% of homes damaged or destroyed. Jamaica and the Cayman Islands also faced Ivan's fury, with extensive flooding and wind damage leaving thousands homeless and causing billions of dollars in damages. After wreaking havoc in the Caribbean, Ivan set its sights on the United States. On September 16th, Ivan made landfall near Gulf Shores, Alabama, as a Category 3 hurricane, bringing with it a massive storm surge and powerful winds. Gulf Shores and the surrounding areas were severely impacted. The storm surge inundated coastal communities, and the high winds caused widespread destruction to homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Ivan was ultimately blamed for the death of 57 people in the United States and another 67 in Grenada, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Cayman Islands, and Barbados. In total, Ivan caused over $26 billion in damages across the United States. Residents and first responders recounted the chaos and devastation left in Ivan's wake. One Alabama resident described how their home was completely flooded, while another spoke of the relentless wind that tore roofs off buildings. Additionally, Ivan produced 117 tornadoes across the southeastern United States, adding to the storm's destructive impact. Despite the extensive destruction, the resilience and determination of the affected communities have been truly inspiring. Number 8. Hurricane Camille. Hurricane Camille, a name that would become legendary, formed on August 14, 1969, near the Cayman Islands. Camille rapidly intensified, becoming a major hurricane as it moved northwest through the Gulf of Mexico. Camille's path took it straight towards the Gulf Coast of the United States. On the night of August 17th to 18th, Camille made landfall near the mouth of the Mississippi River in Waveland, Mississippi, as an unprecedented Category 5 hurricane with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and a minimum central pressure of 900 millibars. Mississippi's Gulf Coast bore the brunt of Camille's fury. The storm surge reached heights of up to 24 feet, sweeping away entire communities. Homes, businesses, and infrastructure were obliterated, and the landscape was unrecognizable. In total, Camille caused over $1.42 billion in damages, equivalent to about $10 billion today. Survivors and first responders described scenes of absolute devastation. One resident recounted how their home was completely destroyed, while another spoke of the harrowing experience of being trapped by the rising storm surge. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, with emergency services working tirelessly to rescue and support those affected. In the wake of Hurricane Camille, the scale of the disaster became evident. Camille claimed the lives of 259 people, with many more injured. Federal, state, and local agencies, along with numerous volunteers, mobilized to provide aid and begin the daunting task of rebuilding. Hurricane Camille was extraordinary in several ways. It was one of only 4 Category 5 hurricanes to make landfall in the contiguous United States. The storm's intensity was such that it produced one of the highest storm surges ever recorded. Additionally, Camille's impact extended far inland, causing catastrophic flooding in Virginia, where record rainfall led to the deaths of 113 people. Number 7. Hurricane Gilbert. Hurricane Gilbert, a storm that would break records and leave a trail of destruction, formed on September 8, 1988, in the tropical Atlantic. Rapidly gaining strength, Gilbert became a major hurricane as it approached the Caribbean. Gilbert's path of devastation began in the Lesser Antilles, where it first impacted Jamaica on September 12 as a Category 3 hurricane. But Gilbert wasn't done. It continued to intensify, reaching Category 5 status with peak winds of 185 miles per hour and a record-setting minimum central pressure of 888 millibars. Jamaica bore the brunt of Gilbert's fury. The storm caused catastrophic damage across the island, with widespread flooding and wind damage leaving tens of thousands of people homeless. The entire island was left without electricity, and the agricultural sector suffered massive losses. After wreaking havoc in Jamaica, Gilbert continued its path of destruction. It struck the Cayman Islands, then the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, still as a Category 5 hurricane. The Mexican coastline faced severe impacts, with extensive damage to homes and infrastructure. In Mexico, Gilbert caused severe flooding and wind damage. One resident described how the storm surge inundated their home, while another spoke of the overwhelming force of the winds that tore apart buildings. The storm caused 318 deaths, including 200 people killed in flooding in Mexico and 28 who died when a Cuban freight ship was thrown into a shrimp boat. Gilbert-related damage topped out at about $5.5 billion. Gilbert's journey wasn't over. After causing devastation in Mexico, it moved into the Gulf of Mexico, threatening the United States. Although it weakened before making landfall in South Texas on September 16 as a Category 3 hurricane, it still caused significant flooding and damage. In Texas, Gilbert's heavy rains led to extensive flooding, particularly in the Rio Grande Valley. The storm surge and high winds caused damage to homes and infrastructure, though not as severe as in the Caribbean and Mexico. Hurricane Gilbert was notable for its incredible intensity and rapid intensification. Its minimum central pressure of 888 millibars set a record for the Atlantic at the time. Gilbert's massive size, with hurricane-force winds extending outward up to 60 miles from the center, contributed to its widespread impact. Number 6. Labor Day Hurricane. This storm is simply known as the Labor Day Hurricane because the practice of naming hurricanes didn't begin until 1953. The 1935 Labor Day hurricane originated as a tropical wave off the coast of Africa in late August, rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 hurricane by the time it reached the Florida Straits. This ferocious storm would forever change the landscape and lives of those in its path. On September 2, 1935, the hurricane made landfall near Long Key in the Florida Keys with sustained winds estimated at 185 miles per hour and a storm surge of up to 20 feet. The impact was catastrophic, especially for the vulnerable and isolated communities of the Keys. The Labor Day hurricane left a trail of devastation in its wake. Entire settlements were obliterated as buildings were swept away by the storm surge and winds. The overseas railroad, linking the Keys to the mainland, was severely damaged beyond repair, forever altering transportation in the region. Survivors recounted tales of horror and survival amidst the fury of the hurricane. Many residents sought refuge in flimsy shelters or clung to debris in a desperate bid to survive. Tragically, the storm claimed the lives of hundreds, with estimates ranging from 400 to 600 fatalities. In the aftermath, the response was a testament to human resilience and solidarity. Rescue missions were launched, and aid poured in from across the nation. However, the scale of destruction was so immense that recovery efforts would take years to rebuild communities and infrastructure. The Labor Day hurricane of 1935 remains a pivotal moment in meteorological history. Its intensity and impact underscored the need for improved hurricane forecasting and preparedness measures. The tragic loss of life also prompted advancements in disaster response and infrastructure resilience. Today, the memory of the 1935 Labor Day hurricane serves as a solemn reminder of the raw power of nature and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Number 5. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina began as a tropical depression over the Bahamas on August 23, 2005. Rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 hurricane in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, Katrina posed an unprecedented threat to the Gulf Coast. On August 29, 2005, Katrina made landfall near Boris Triumph, Louisiana, as a Category 3 hurricane with sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. The storm surge, combined with the heavy rainfall, caused catastrophic flooding along the coastlines of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. New Orleans, a city below sea level, faced the brunt of Katrina's wrath. The failure of multiple levees led to massive inundation, submerging 80% of the city under floodwaters. Thousands were stranded on rooftops, in shelters, and at the Superdome, awaiting rescue amid deteriorating conditions. Survivors recounted harrowing tales of survival and loss. Many described the chaos and desperation as floodwaters rose rapidly. First responders, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster, worked tirelessly to rescue those trapped and provide essential medical care. The aftermath of Hurricane Katrina was a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented proportions. Over 1,800 lives were lost, and thousands more were displaced. The federal, state, and local response was criticized for its slow and inadequate initial efforts to provide relief and evacuate survivors. Hurricane Katrina was notable for its immense size and destructive power. The storm's impact extended far beyond its landfall point, affecting an area roughly the size of Great Britain. Katrina's economic toll exceeded $125 billion, making it the costliest hurricane in U.S. history at the time. In the years following Katrina, the Gulf Coast has made significant strides in recovery and rebuilding. Number 4. Hurricane Maria. Hurricane Maria originated as a tropical wave in the Atlantic Ocean, gaining strength and organization as it moved westward. By September 18, 2017, Maria had intensified into a Category 5 hurricane, with sustained winds reaching 175 miles per hour. Maria's path brought it directly over the Caribbean islands. On September 20th, the hurricane made landfall on Dominica as a Category 5 storm, causing widespread devastation with its powerful winds and torrential rainfall. Dominica suffered catastrophic damage, with nearly every structure on the island affected. The lush landscape was stripped bare, and communication and power infrastructure were completely destroyed. The island faced a humanitarian crisis in the storm's aftermath. Maria continued on to Puerto Rico, making landfall on September 20th as a powerful Category 4 hurricane. The island, already struggling with economic challenges, was ill-prepared for the scale of destruction that Maria unleashed. Puerto Rico experienced widespread devastation. The island's power grid was virtually wiped out, leaving millions without electricity for months. Access to clean water and essential services became critical issues, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Residents and first responders described the desperate conditions in the aftermath of Maria. Survivors recounted tales of survival amidst flooded homes and neighborhoods. Rescue efforts were hampered by impassable roads and communication breakdowns. The response to Hurricane Maria was marred by controversy and criticism over the adequacy and timeliness of federal and local relief efforts. The slow recovery process highlighted systemic issues and disparities in disaster response and recovery. Hurricane Maria was notable for its rapid intensification and the severity of its impact on Puerto Rico. Maria's winds and rain caused an estimated $90 billion in damages across the Caribbean, making it one of the costliest hurricanes on record. The official death toll from Maria was put at 146, 64 in Puerto Rico, 65 in Dominica, and the rest in other islands. However, people believe the real total was much higher. the Puerto Rican government finally revised the death toll to 2,975 in August 2018. In the years since Maria, Puerto Rico and other affected islands have made significant strides in rebuilding and improving infrastructure resilience. Number 3. Galveston Hurricane. The Galveston Hurricane of 1900 began as a tropical wave near the Lesser Antilles in late August. Gradually intensifying as it moved westward, the storm reached hurricane strength and made a devastating turn toward the Gulf Coast of the United States. On September 8, 1900, the hurricane struck Galveston, a bustling coastal city known for its thriving port and vibrant community. At the time, Galveston was one of the wealthiest cities in Texas, but its location made it vulnerable to storms. The storm surge from the hurricane, estimated to be as high as 15 feet, inundated the low-lying island city. The combination of powerful winds and the massive surge resulted in catastrophic flooding, sweeping away buildings and homes. Survivors described the terrifying ordeal of being trapped in their homes as floodwaters rose rapidly. The lack of advanced warning systems and evacuation plans contributed to the high death toll. An estimated 6,000 to 12,000 people perished in the storm, making it one of the deadliest hurricanes in U.S. history. In the aftermath of the Galveston hurricane, the city was left devastated. Bodies littered the streets, and debris covered much of the island. Relief efforts poured in from neighboring cities and states, with volunteers and organizations providing aid and support to survivors. The Galveston Hurricane of 1900 prompted significant changes in hurricane preparedness and infrastructure. The city embarked on ambitious projects to raise its elevation and build a protective seawall, measures that have since helped mitigate the impact of future storms. The resilience of the people of Galveston is evident in their efforts to rebuild and strengthen their community. The lessons learned from the 1900 hurricane continue to shape disaster preparedness and response strategies today. The Galveston Hurricane of 1900 remains a poignant reminder of the devastating power of hurricanes and the importance of proactive measures in mitigating their impact. Number 2. Hurricane Mitch. Hurricane Mitch began as a tropical depression in the western Caribbean Sea in late October 1998. Over the course of several days, Mitch rapidly intensified into a Category 5 hurricane, with sustained winds reaching 180 miles per hour. On October 29, 1998, Hurricane Mitch made landfall in Honduras, devastating the country with its powerful winds, torrential rainfall, and catastrophic flooding. Mitch unleashed unprecedented rainfall over Central America, triggering widespread flooding and landslides across Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Entire communities were submerged, and thousands of homes were destroyed. Survivors recounted tales of survival amidst the rising floodwaters. Many described harrowing experiences of losing loved ones and escaping flooded homes. First responders and international aid agencies faced immense challenges in reaching and providing relief to affected communities. Hurricane Mitch caused a humanitarian crisis of staggering proportions. The storm claimed the lives of over 11,000 people across Central America, with thousands more reported missing or displaced. The economic losses totaled billions of dollars, severely impacting the region's infrastructure and economy. Hurricane Mitch was notable not only for its intensity but also for its slow movement, which exacerbated the rainfall and flooding. The storm's lingering effects caused rivers to overflow and created massive mudslides, further complicating rescue and recovery efforts. In the aftermath of Mitch, Central American countries and international organizations launched extensive recovery and reconstruction efforts. These efforts focused on rebuilding infrastructure, improving disaster preparedness, and implementing sustainable development practices to mitigate future risks. Number 1. The Great Hurricane of 1780. The Great Hurricane of 1780 formed in the eastern Caribbean Sea in early October. It rapidly intensified into a Category 5 hurricane, with sustained winds estimated at 200 miles per hour. On October 10, 1780, the hurricane struck the Lesser Antilles, devastating the islands of Barbados, St. Lucia, Martinique, and St. Eustatius. The storm's ferocity was unparalleled, with eyewitnesses describing it as the Day of Horrors. The Great Hurricane unleashed unimaginable destruction. Entire towns were flattened, ships were wrecked, and vegetation was stripped bare. The storm surge inundated coastal areas, claiming the lives of thousands. Survivors recounted tales of survival amidst the chaos. The hurricane's fury was indiscriminate, sparing neither rich nor poor. It's estimated that the Great Hurricane of 1780 killed upwards of 22,000 people across the Caribbean, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in history. In the wake of the devastation, communities faced unimaginable hardship. Relief efforts were minimal by today's standards, with survivors relying on their resilience and the assistance of neighboring islands and European powers. The Great Hurricane of 1780 left an indelible mark on Caribbean history. It was not only the deadliest hurricane recorded, but it also highlighted the vulnerability of island communities to extreme weather events. In the centuries since the Great Hurricane of 1780, the Caribbean has seen tremendous advancements in hurricane forecasting, preparedness, and infrastructure resilience. These efforts are critical in minimizing the impact of future hurricanes. The legacy of the Great Hurricane of 1780 serves as a reminder of the awesome power of nature and the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the 15 most deadliest hurricanes in North American history. From the tragic events that reshaped communities to the remarkable stories of survival and recovery, these hurricanes remind us of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of being prepared. As we continue to learn from these historic storms, we're reminded of the advancements in meteorology and disaster response that help us better predict and mitigate the impact of hurricanes today. Be sure to comment below with your thoughts and experiences, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating and amazing videos from the world and beyond. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed. This is World of Wonders, signing off.